Hey, back with another video another day. I'm gonna be listening to my man Richard Wolff, man. Richard Wolff be saying some real stuff, but y'all know me on this page. I will definitely chew you out if I feel like you're giving bad faith arguments, whether I like you or not. But hey, we gonna give this a chance. Richard Wolff, guys, Richard Wolff. I love Richard Wolff. Subscribe, turn on post notifications. And this is where my audience, I think, really lies, because, you know, we all, you know, we socialist over here, / capitalist. We're both. Just playing. But yeah, let's that was corny, you know. Anyways, don't want to tell any more corny jokes because I know y'all gonna bury me if I do it. But yeah, Richard Wolff definitely has some great opinions. I'm definitely willing to see, like, so he's having beef with Jordan Peterson. Let's see what he says about Jordan Peterson. It says debunking Jordan Peterson's cultural Marxism. And most people don't know. Most people who try to debunk Marxism don't even know what it is. That's very true. Like I've listened to a lot of people who try to debunk Marxism who know really nothing about it. But let's get into it. Let's get right into the reaction. All right, no sound of the Empire Files. Okay.
So right-wing figures like Steve Bannon, Jordan Peterson use this term cultural Marxism to describe the so-called moral rot of our society as kind of analogous to Marxism. So first talk about what you think cultural Marxism is in terms of how they're applying it and your response to this theory.
Well, you know, the irony, and perhaps there's a deep meaning to it, the irony is that cultural Marxism is a derivative of a term called cultural Bolshevism, which meant basically the same thing. And this was invented by the Nazis in Germany as a way of organizing the German population to be critical of everything to the left of the Nazis. They were all either dupes of the communists that lay behind them.
So anybody who uses the term cultural Marxism, it started from Nazis. So Jordan Peterson is using a term that started from Nazis. That's... Whoa.
Or wittingly doing their dirty work of spreading secretly and in the schools and in the films and in the museums this kind of evil Bolshevism. There's therefore some symbolic interest in the fact that Jordan Peterson or Steve Bannon would find in their minds the same phrase to play the same game, to argue that somehow, insidiously, the Democrats, liberals, everything left of where they are, is somehow infected by a dangerous disease. It is hallucinatory, it's nutty, but it can serve as a way to organize people to be hateful towards those they disagree with.
And it doesn't actually have any application in Marxist theory.
No. Doesn't come out of Marxism. Marx never discussed anything like cultural Marxism. Marxists in general haven't. The closest Marxists came to something like that was to be interested in the role culture plays in shaping capitalism. Because capitalism affects culture in various ways. You know, we're doing a program on a cultural kind of way, but it's part of the economy of our society. So they were interested in the interplay between economics and culture, and so they would do that kind of analysis, but they never called it cultural Marxism. They talked about Marxism's interest in culture, but that's really the closest they came.
Seems like they're commenting on the identitarian aspect of how Democrats hijack identity politics to kind of sell the same ideas and institutions, and they're just kind of running scared of that.
Right, if you're afraid of the inclusion in our society of African Americans, Hispanic Americans, women, gay folks, and so forth, if all of that frightens you, which it does, then it's nice to have a term that says all of the things we don't like are secretly manipulated by Marxists. It's scaremongering of the crudest sort.
Well, I don't know if
that explains a lot, because I've always wondered why a lot of white people that I talk to don't like anything about socialism, Marxism, and they really know hardly anything about it. But it makes sense. They're being manipulated by the wealthy to think that it's something bad, and they don't have, like, and some of them don't have the wherewithal to go look into it for themselves and see what makes sense. But I know, like, when I talk to people, like a person I know, there's a guy, there's a person I know was talking about his CEO in his company, and his CEO makes $10 million. And he was saying how that guy making $10 million is crazy compared to like what everybody else has to budget at the bottom, right? And that he could make two. You know what I mean? He's still making $1 million, but make two. You know what I mean? Like, and the rest of that money goes back into the employees because they don't give great bonus. They didn't give great bonuses. They didn't give great increases. So it was like, why? Like you're spending so much money on the top people, but not the bottom people. And I thought it was interesting that's a socialist argument. But it's the same person. This guy voted for Trump. Voted for Trump, believes in everything that Trump and Reagan stood for, and everything that Reagan stood for was about deregulating businesses, deregulating government intervention in businesses, and untaxing the rich. It was all about the wealthy. He believed that the wealthy should be trusted more in society than the poor, almost in a way. And I don't know, it's interesting. I don't know, it's so backwards, but we're going.
Saw Jordan Peterson's debate with Slavoj Žižek. I thought you should have been debating Jordan Peterson. I think you've done a great job. Oh, I would love to see that.
Well, I actually did it a little bit. Let me tell you the story because you might enjoy it. A group of faculty and students at Boise State University in Boise, Idaho, about a year ago sent me a bizarre invitation. Bizarre only in the sense I hadn't expected it. They were having a day-long conference, students and faculty at this university, devoted to the work of Jordan Peterson, who has a big influence out there in Idaho. And would I debate him since he has said publicly that no Marxists would dare debate him? So I found this amusing. I have to admit, I didn't know who Jordan Peterson was at this moment, but I liked the idea of someone saying such a silly thing. And I said, of course I'll debate him. No, sight unseen, I will debate him, if we can work out the details. A few weeks later, they called me back and they said, we informed Mr. Peterson that you had accepted our invitation and we would have, as a featured part of this day, a debate between the two of you. Fine, I said. Oh, no, they said, not fine. He withdrew. So he was gone.
Oh, Jordan Peterson running from the smoke. You don't want to debate someone who's well-rehearsed in Marxism, but you want to debate Žižek, who I'm not saying that Žižek is not as well-rehearsed as Richard Wolff, but no, he is. He's not. Richard Wolff is understands it way better than Žižek. I thought that debate was hilariously, it was just Žižek, I don't know, man. I'm not saying Žižek didn't make good points, but Žižek, I don't know. Jordan made a lot of bad faith arguments. Like, he used the Communist Manifesto to describe socialism and Marxism. That's what he used. He didn't use any other writings by Marx, and it was just weird that Žižek didn't attack that. Like, where are you going with that? But let's keep going.
But he so angered them by his, acceptance and then withdrawal that they said, why don't you just come out here and analyze his work from a Marxist perspective. So I have, in this ersatz way, debated Mr. Peterson, and that forced me, of course, to read a little bit, see what he has said and done.
Well, we know how little he's actually read of Marx, so maybe that's what scared him. And in that debate with Slavoj Žižek, he talks about workers and bosses, and he actually says this, Richard, he says, quote, bosses would have to be stupid to exploit their workers. I mean, what is your response to that statement and how it kind of mischaracterizes Marx's theory of exploitation of labor?
It is so ignorant, which I'll explain in a moment, that it takes your breath away, because in that moment he reveals that he never read what Marxism
Facts.
say, or what Marx wrote. Marx's great work is Capital, 3 volumes. First volume released 1867, so Peterson has had time to take a look at it. Right in the beginning, Marx explains what he means by exploitation. And it's a simple mathematical thing. If a worker, during the time he or she works, produces more value for the employer than the employer pays them in wages, that's all exploitation means. It has nothing to do with the common sense words, treating somebody nicely or not nicely, or in a crude way. So let me give it in a simple American example. If you go look for a job with a private employer and you discuss it and you get to the point of how much am I going to get paid, and they say to you, well, we're going to pay you $20 an hour, and you agree to that, you know in the back of your mind what Marx is saying here. You know that the employer will never pay you $20 an hour to do something unless during that time you produce more than $20 worth of extra value when it comes time to sell whatever you're helping to produce.
Facts.
Otherwise, there's nothing in it for the employer.
Facts.
And he's not going to do it because he's a nice guy. He's doing it to make money. So if he pays you the 20, you're worth more than that to him. And in that act, you're exploited. You're producing more than you're getting. It's a kind of moment, a eureka moment for young people when they discover this, either by reading Marx or by their own experience, because it confronts them with a stark reality. You are never going to get paid what you are worth because this system is built on there being a difference between what you add by your labor and what you get paid for doing so. That's what every company is in the business to do. So Marx was saying it's a system that exploits. It's a system built on that difference. For Mr. Peterson to then say, nobody would ever do that because it makes no sense, exposes a level of unfamiliarity, which, nobody has to know Marx, why not? But if you go around celebrating yourself as a critic of Marx and you haven't the most basic understanding, it's embarrassing.
Very embarrassing. Very embarrassing. Very embarrassing. And he's 1,000% right. Exactly. That's what Marx was getting at. That automatically the system of capitalism is all predicated upon exploitation because you're never going to be truly paid what you're worth. You settle for what they're willing to give you. But the reason why is because what you make, he already said it, what you make is predicated upon you making more for the company. So that's why, like, the real thing you go out in society and search for is what jobs or what industries make a lot of money, and those industries can pay you more. So you find an industry that makes a lot of money, that way you can make a lot of money, right? If you find an industry that makes billions upon billions of dollars like the tech industry, you're probably going to make a lot, $100,000 a year in those industries. Health industry, billions of dollars a year, you might make a lot in those industries. Things like that, like services to people make billions of dollars in those industries. But it's all predicated upon exploitation. You never make what you're 100% worth. And the only way to really get far in this system is by becoming an entrepreneur. But let's keep going.
Yeah, that's the premise of every worker-employer relationship.
It's as if I went into his field. He's a professor of psychology, by the way, in Toronto. If I went into his field and said something moronic about Freud's ideas, he would be in the same position as correcting me, but it would be an embarrassment of me. I wouldn't do that because it's kind of ridiculous and childish. But he gets such an audience reaction from knocking Marxism in trivial ways and never debating them the way he did with me, that he's never been brought up short by being exposed for the fakery that he projects.
It's kind of the same logic as just saying, CEOs would never pursue profits at the expense of the environment. That would be stupid.
That's right. Who wants to destroy the environment?
Right,
We have no
facts.
years of evidence to the contrary.
Yeah.
It's extraordinary.
Well, another thing that he says, and this is the last thing I'll say about Jordan Peterson, another thing that he says is kind of justifying hierarchies, that hierarchies are biologically, they're natural, and that we should just accept them. What is your response when you hear this as used to justify the gross inequalities under global capitalism?
My reaction is to remind everybody of how slavery was justified. We were told in the American South and in other parts of the world where slavers existed that there was a natural, difference among people. White people were here culturally, and black people were down there. These were natural, these were historical. Whenever people in a dominant position get nervous about the security of their dominance, they like to anchor it, to make it something other than a convention among people and root it instead in nature, something that isn't going to change. Like the trees grow and the sun comes out, well, there are natural superiorities, and we happen to be the ones to tell you about it because we're sitting in the catbird seat at the top. For me, it is a sign of the danger of the status quo, feeling itself on shaky ground, having to lunge into some claim of nature, making them the dominant player. Every group on top needs to naturalize. They can't stand that it's just a social convention.
Yeah.
Because then it can be changed.
Right.
So it's nice to anchor it in something that is unchangeable. Human nature.
Human nature.
The minute you hear that, you should reach for your gun. Conversation has taken a bad turn.
Richard Wolff, y'all know he always drops gems and he's 1000% right. Like that hierarchies are not natural, they were created. Hierarchies are not natural, they were created. And that's why to explain a lot of hierarchies in the past, you have to talk about divine. A lot of them talked about God was the one that gave me the power to do what I'm doing. Or like the people need to be this way or that way, like he said about slavery. Anyways, y'all, that was a good video. Loving it. Y'all know Richard Wolff over here is definitely, he's somebody I barely ever argue with on this channel because I feel like he drops a lot of gems. But, y'all know, maybe I'm biased on that. Y'all tell me what y'all think.